I woke up screaming, not from pain, though God knows I remembered every second of it, but from rage. Pure white hot fury that my family had won, that they'd taken everything from me, used me up, and tossed me aside like garbage. Except I blinked at the ceiling. This wasn't the hospice, this was my old apartment, the one I'd lived in 3 years ago. My hands flew to my stomach. Flat. No, wait, not flat. There was a small curve there, maybe 12 weeks along. Oh, God. I scrambled for my phone, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it twice. The date glared at me. March 15th, 2019. 3 years. I'd gone back 3 years. The twins weren't born yet. They weren't in the custody of my sister Claire and her husband Marcus. They weren't being raised by the people who'd let me die alone in a state-funded hospice, while they posted Instagram photos with their miracle babies. They were still inside me, still mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Family dinner. Tonight, 6 p.m. Don't be late. Claire has news to share. I remembered this dinner. How could I forget? This was the night they told me their plan. The night my life became a waking nightmare. But not this time. This time, I knew exactly what they were, and I was going to burn their whole world down. Let me take you back so you understand. So, you know why what I'm about to do isn't just justified, it's merciful compared to what they deserve. In my first life, I was the family doormat, the difficult daughter who'd made the mistake of being born first before my parents figured out how to create the golden child. Claire was 3 years younger, beautiful, charming, and ruthless, in ways that people mistook for ambition. I was the scholarship kid who worked 2 jobs through college. Claire was the sorority president whose DUI got swept under the rug with Dad's checkbook. I was the ungrateful daughter who moved across town for a job. Claire was the beloved baby who could do no one wrong. When Claire married Marcus, a trust fund brat from old money, our parents acted like she'd won the lottery. Never mind that I just made junior partner at my firm. Claire's wedding was a $50,000 spectacle. My promotion got a distracted, "That's nice, honey," over the phone. I should have seen it coming. The way they'd always treated me like an asset, not a daughter. Like something to be used. The dinner. God, I could still taste the wine they'd plied me with, loosening my defenses. Claire had cried, actually cried real tears, which should have been my first warning because Claire never cried unless there was an audience. "We've been trying for 3 years," she'd sobbed into Marcus's shoulder. "The doctors say my uterus is... It's just not viable. I'll never carry my own baby." Mom had grabbed my hand. "Sweetheart, you're so strong, so healthy, and you're not even seeing anyone seriously right now. We were thinking..." And there it was. The ask that wasn't really a request. "You want me to be her surrogate?" Dad had smiled like I just solved a simple math problem. It would mean so much to the family to give Claire this gift. After everything she's been through. Everything she'd been through? I'd worked since I was 14. I'd put myself through law school. I'd built a career from nothing while they'd handed Claire everything on a platinum platter. And now they wanted my body too? I don't think I'd started. "We'd compensate you, of course," Marcus had interjected smoothly. $50,000, more than fair for 9 months of your time. In my first life, I'd said no. Firmly, clearly, repeatedly. They destroyed me for it. The smear campaign started subtly. Mom would mention to her book club how worried she was about me, how I'd been acting strange and selfish. Dad would shake his head at the country club, lamenting that I'd changed since my promotion, become cold and career-obsessed. Claire took to social media with posts about her fertility struggles, her heartbreak, and cryptic references to family who won't help even when you're desperate. Her friends ate it up. The comments poured in. Who wouldn't help their own sister? Family is everything. What kind of person chooses their career over giving the gift of life? My colleagues started treating me differently. Someone had sent anonymous emails to my firm's partners about my instability. Clients requested different representation. My annual review, which should have been stellar, suddenly cited interpersonal concerns and questions about judgment. I was drowning, and my family watched with smiles on their faces. Then came the accident that wasn't an accident. I'd been walking to my car after a particularly brutal day at work when a vehicle jumped the curb. I remember the impact. The sensation of flying, the crack of my skull against concrete. When I woke up in the hospital, both my legs were shattered. The driver was never found. My family descended like vultures. "Oh, honey, this is terrible," the mom had cooed, patting my hand. "You can't possibly live alone now. You'll need so much help. The medical bills alone." My insurance, I discovered, had lapsed due to an administrative error at my firm. The firm claimed I'd missed an enrollment deadline. I knew better. They were pushing me out, and my family had greased the wheels. "We have a solution," Dad had announced. "Come stay with Claire and Marcus. They have that big house, plenty of room. They can help you recover." I should have known. God, I should have known. But I was in pain, scared, and alone. I said yes. The first month was almost normal. Claire brought me meals. Marcus helped me with physical therapy exercises. They were kind in that calculated way that should have set off every alarm bell. Then one night, Claire brought me a glass of wine with dinner. "To celebrate," she'd said. "You're healing so well." I woke up 12 hours later with a pounding headache and a strange pulling sensation in my arm. There was a fresh needle mark in my elbow, covered with a bandage. "Oh, you're up," Claire had breezed into the room. "The nurse said you might feel groggy. Don't worry, it's just the hormones." My blood turned to ice. "What nurse? What hormones?" She'd smiled then, and it was the smile of someone who'd already won. "For the embryo transfer, silly. Didn't I tell you? The doctor said you were healthy enough. We did it this morning. You're going to give us our baby after all." I'd screamed, fought, tried to get out of bed, and discovered that they'd locked my wheelchair in the closet. My phone was gone. The windows had been fitted with locks I couldn't reach from the bed. "You're being hysterical," Mom had said when she arrived an hour later. "After everything this family has done for you, paying your medical bills, giving you a place to recover, this is the least you can do. You were being selfish before. We're just helping you be a better person." They'd implanted me with my own eggs and Marcus's sperm while I was unconscious. Made me a prisoner in my own body. I'd tried everything. Called the police from a smuggled phone, but Claire had a medical power of attorney that I'd signed while drugged. The officers looked at me with pity and suspicion. A troubled woman making wild accusations against the family caring for her. Claire showed them the signed surrogacy contract, complete with my forged signature and a notary stamp I'd never seen before. I tried to escape. They caught me halfway down the block, legs still weak, and installed cameras in my room. I tried to terminate the pregnancy. Marcus had paid off every clinic within 100 miles. The one doctor who seemed sympathetic called my family instead of helping me, so I endured. 9 months of captivity, watching my body change to create children for the people who had destroyed my life. They monitored everything, my food, my activities, my phone calls. I was allowed 1 hour of supervised internet time per day. No social media, no email, nothing. When my water broke, Claire was there with a hospital bag already packed. "Finally," she'd breathed, her eyes glittering. "Our babies are coming." 36 hours of labor. Twins, a boy and a girl, perfect and beautiful and not mine. Not legally. The birth certificate listed Claire as the mother. The hospital staff congratulated her while I lay bleeding and forgotten in the delivery room. They took my babies before I could even hold them. Said it would be easier if I didn't bond. I was discharged to a motel 3 days later with a check for $50,000, the surrogacy fee I'd never agreed to, payment for the service I'd never consented to provide. My family didn't even come to pick me up. Marcus sent a car service. The money lasted 6 months. The medical complications from the labor, hemorrhaging they'd ignored in their rush to get me away, from their children, lasted longer. I couldn't work, couldn't walk without pain. Spent my days in a haze of medications I couldn't afford, watching my savings evaporate. I saw my babies exactly once after that, by accident, at a grocery store 2 years later. Claire was showing them off to admiring strangers, two beautiful toddlers with my eyes and my smile. She saw me watching and her expression went cold. She grabbed her children, my children, and swept past me like I was nothing, like I was no one. I died 3 months after that, alone in a hospice bed, from complications that could have been treated if I'd had money for proper care. The last thing I saw before the world went dark was my phone, lighting up with a notification. Claire's Instagram post, a professional photo shoot with the twins, caption reading, "Blessed with our miracle babies, so grateful for the gift of motherhood. Family is everything." But now I was here, back before it all went wrong. I had 12 weeks, give or take. 12 weeks before I'd be showing enough that they'd accelerate their plans, 12 weeks to disappear. My first call was to my bank. I need to liquidate everything. All investments, my 401k, everything. Yes, I understand the penalties. Do it anyway. Second call, a lawyer. Not one from my firm. They'd proven their loyalty in the first life. I found a bulldog attorney 3 states over through online reviews. Someone who specialized in family law and had a reputation for scorched earth tactics. I need to establish parental rights, I told her over an encrypted video call, before my family can contest it, and I need to do it quietly. Jennifer Santos listened to my story, the edited version without the time travel, without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "They forged a surrogacy contract in your first timeline?" "Yes." "And you have no contract in this timeline?" "Not yet. They haven't asked yet." "Then here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a paper trail that establishes you as a single mother by choice. Doctor's visits under your name only. A will designating guardianship to someone other than your family. A restraining order if necessary, and you're going to disappear before they can stop you." "Where?" She smiled. "I have a colleague in Oregon. As far from your family as possible while staying in the continental U.S. She helps women escape domestic situations. This qualifies." "When? How fast can you pack?" The family dinner was excruciating. I sat at Mom's pristine dining table, pushing around the organic chicken and roasted vegetables I once would have appreciated, and watched them perform. Claire glowed. That was the only word for it. She'd dressed carefully, a soft cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent, minimal makeup to emphasize her natural beauty, and an expression of such hope and vulnerability that I wanted to scream. "So," she started after Dad, had said Grace and Mom had poured the wine. "Marcus and I have something to share." I played my part, smiled, looked interested, did not reach across the table and throttle her. "We've been struggling," she continued, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. "For years now, trying to have a baby. And we finally have an answer. I can't carry a pregnancy. My uterus is... It's just not possible." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's expression creased with concern. I wondered how many times they'd rehearsed this. "Oh, sweetheart," Mom whispered. "I'm so sorry." "We've looked into all the options," Marcus added, placing his hand over Claire's in a gesture of solidarity. "Adoption has years-long waiting lists, and surrogacy through an agency is prohibitively expensive and impersonal. We want our own biological child, if possible." The trap was being set. I could see the pieces moving into place. "Which is why," Claire turned to me, tears now streaming down her perfect cheeks, "we wanted to ask you, as family, as my sister, if you would consider being our surrogate." I let the silence stretch, let them squirm. "We know it's a huge ask," Dad interjected, "but you're young, healthy, and not currently in a serious relationship. 9 months of your life to give your sister the family she deserves. We'd compensate you, of course. $50,000, enough for a down payment on a house or to pay off your student loans or..." "No," I said quietly. Claire's face crumpled. Please, you don't understand how much this means to us. I've wanted to be a mother my entire life. You have your career, your independence, you have everything. Can't you spare just this one thing for me? In my first life, this was where I'd gotten angry. Defensive, let them paint me as the irrational one, not this time. I said no, Claire. I'm sorry you're going through this, truly, but my body isn't available for rent, even to family, especially to family. How can you be so selfish? Mom's voice went sharp. After everything we've done for you, all the sacrifices we made raising you, and you can't do this one thing? What sacrifices, Mom? You paid for Claire's college and her wedding and her car. I got a firm handshake and a ride to the community college. Don't pretend you've invested equally in both your daughters. Dad's face went red. That's not fair. We gave according to need. Claire needed more support. Claire needed more because you enabled her every whim instead of teaching her to stand on her own feet. And now you want me to literally give her the one thing she can't buy. No, my answer is no. I stood up, grabbed my purse. Thank you for dinner. I'll see myself out. If you walk out that door, Mom said, her voice like ice, don't expect this family to be here when you need us. I laughed. Actually, laughed. When have you ever been there when I needed you? The drive home was a blur. I knew what I'd just triggered in the first timeline, and it took them 3 months to destroy my reputation and engineer the accident. I had days, maybe a week, before they escalated. Jennifer had been right. I needed to disappear, now. My apartment was already mostly packed. I'd been working on it in stolen moments all week, shipping boxes to a storage unit under a fake name. Now I threw the essentials into my car: clothes, documents, laptop, the cash I'd withdrawn in small amounts to avoid triggering alerts. The pregnancy paperwork was already filed under my name at a clinic across town. Dr. Sarah Chen had been surprised but professional when I'd explained I wanted no family listed on my medical records, no emergency contacts except my attorney. She'd raised an eyebrow but complied. Controlling family? She'd asked gently. Something like that. My phone buzzed constantly as I drove. Mom, Dad, Claire, Marcus. Unknown numbers that had to be their friends, ready to pile on the pressure. I let them all go to voicemail. By midnight, I was in a motel in Ohio. By the next night, Iowa. By the third day, I crossed into Oregon and found the safe house Jennifer's colleague had arranged. It was a small cottage outside Portland, surrounded by trees and quiet. The owner was a woman named Margaret who'd escaped her own bad situation 20 years ago and now helped others do the same. You'll be safe here, she said, showing me around the 2-bedroom space. Utilities are included. I've had the property in a trust for years. Can't be traced to you or anyone connected to you. Stay as long as you need. Thank you, I whispered. Jennifer told me a little of your story, not the details, but enough. Whatever your family did or tried to do, you don't owe them your body. You don't owe them anything. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The babies, Margaret said gently. You're keeping them? Yes. Then we'll make sure you can. I know a doctor who won't ask questions, a hospital with a social worker who understands complicated family situations. You're not alone in this. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Back in my home state, my family was losing their minds. I knew this because Claire made the mistake of keeping her Instagram public. Her posts became increasingly frantic. First, sad quotes about betrayal and family, then thinly veiled accusations, then outright calls for anyone who'd seen me to contact them. My sister is missing, one post read, over a photo of us from 5 years ago. She's pregnant and alone, and I'm terrified for her safety. If anyone has seen Emma Richardson, please contact me immediately. She needs help. Find Emma. Family first. The comments poured in. Hundreds of concerned strangers offering prayers and support, calling me selfish and unstable and worse. Claire responded to each one, painting herself as the devastated sister, me as the mentally ill runaway. She had no idea I was watching, that I was screenshotting every vital post, every comment, every piece of evidence of her manipulation. Jennifer was building a case, not for trial. We both knew it wouldn't come to that, but for leverage, for the moment when they found me and tried to force me back, because they would find me eventually. They had resources, connections, and the absolute conviction that they deserve those babies. I just needed to stay hidden long enough for the twins to be born. Once they were here, once they were legally mine with birth certificates and medical records that couldn't be forged, my family would have no claim. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, which was both a relief and a strange grief. In my first life, I'd spent these months in captivity, my body monitored and controlled. Now I was free to make my own choices, and it felt surreal. Dr. Rachel Morrison, the physician Margaret recommended, was a godsend. She was in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "You're measuring well," she said at my bedside. 16-week appointment. "Both babies are healthy. Do you want to know the sexes?" I hesitated. In my first life, I'd never been asked. Never been given a choice about anything. "Yes," I whispered. "I do." "One boy, one girl, congratulations." I cried in the exam room for 20 minutes. Dr. Morrison sat with me, holding my hand, asking nothing. The twins kicked for the first time at 18 weeks. I was sitting in the cottage garden reading a book on childbirth when I felt it. A flutter, then a nudge, then a full-on kick. My son, my daughter, saying hello. I placed my hands on my belly and whispered, "I've got you, I promise. No one is taking you from me." They found me at 28 weeks. I'd gotten comfortable, complacent. I'd stopped checking over my shoulder, stopped jumping at every car that slowed down near the cottage. Margaret had warned me it was too soon to relax, but I'd thought I'd been careful enough. I was wrong. I came home from a prenatals appointment to find Dad's Mercedes in the driveway. My heart stopped. I considered running, but where would I go? I was 7 months pregnant with twins. Running wasn't exactly an option. I walked inside to find Dad, Mom, and Claire sitting in my living room like they owned it. Margaret stood in the corner, her arms crossed, her expression furious. "I told them they needed to leave," she said to me. "They refused." "It's fine, Margaret," I said, though my hands were shaking. "I'll handle this." She looked uncertain but nodded and slipped outside, though I knew she was calling Jennifer. Emma. Mom stood, her arms outstretched like she expected a hug. "Sweetheart, thank God. We've been so worried." "How did you find me?" "Does it matter?" Dad's voice was gruff. "You ran away from your family, from people who love you. We've been terrified." "Terrified of what? That I might actually keep my own babies?" Claire flinched. "They're not your babies, Emma. They're ours. We had an agreement." "We have no agreement. I never signed anything. I never consented to anything. These children are mine." "You used Marcus's sperm," Claire shrieked, her composure finally cracking. "We paid for the procedure. We have receipts." "Do you?" I kept my voice calm. "Because I have medical records showing I chose an anonymous donor through a licensed sperm bank. My lawyer has copies. So does my doctor, so I'm very curious to see these receipts you claim to have for a procedure I never underwent." I watched the blood drain from her face. In the first timeline, they'd drugged me and done the embryo transfer at a private clinic owned by one of Marcus's golf buddies. Paperwork had been forged. But in this timeline, none of that had happened. She had nothing. "You're lying," she whispered. "Prove it. Take me to court. Let a judge see your forged documents versus my legitimate medical records. Let's see how that plays out." Dad stepped forward. "Emma, be reasonable. You're not equipped to raise twins alone. You don't have the resources, the support system. We're offering you a way out. We'll take the babies, raise them in a loving home with 2 parents, and you can go back to your life." "My life? The one where you all systematically destroyed my career and my reputation because I wouldn't be your broodmare? That life?" "We did no such thing," Mom snapped. "You're being paranoid." Am I? Because I have emails, screenshots, voicemails, all the evidence of your smear campaign saved and documented. Jennifer is very thorough. "Who the hell is Jennifer?" Claire demanded. "My attorney. She specializes in family law and harassment cases. She's very interested in your social media posts, Claire. All those accusations about my mental health, all those calls for people to find me and drag me back. Could be considered stalking, defamation. She thinks we have a strong case. The silence was deafening. You wouldn't, Mom finally said. We're your family. You stopped being my family the moment you decided I was a resource to exploit instead of a person to love. Now get out of my house. This isn't over, Dad said, his voice cold. Those babies are Claire's by right. We'll sue for custody. We'll prove you're an unfit mother. You'll do nothing, Jennifer said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard her arrive. Because if you continue to harass my client, I'll file a restraining order and then I'll file a civil suit for the emotional distress and financial damage caused by your campaign against her. I have documentation going back months, character witnesses, expert testimony. You'll lose, and it will be very, very public. She stepped into the room, every inch the predator in a power suit. I should also mention that Emma has given an extensive deposition detailing what you attempted to do in your previous timeline. What you attempted to do before she left. Forced surrogacy, forged documents, attempts to have her declared mentally incompetent. It's all on record now, sealed but available if this goes to court. That's absurd, Claire said, but her voice wavered. She's making things up. She's mentally unstable. Tell them, Marcus. Tell them how she... Where's Marcus? I interrupted. Interesting that he's not here for this family ambush. Claire's mouth snapped shut. Could it be because he's at home, destroying the evidence? The forged surrogacy contract you created just in case you needed it? The medical records from Dr. Patterson's private clinic, the one that lost its license last month for ethical violations? Jennifer's investigator has been very busy. The look on Claire's face was everything I'd dreamed of. Pure horror, realizing I was 10 steps ahead. Get out, I said again. All of you, and don't come back. You have no claim to my children. You have no claim to me. We're done. Emma, Mom tried, out now, or I call the police and report trespassers who are, threatening a pregnant woman. They left. Dad practically dragged Claire to the car while she sobbed hysterically. Mom paused at the door. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Family is everything. Without us, you have nothing. I smiled. I have everything that matters. You just can't see it because you've never valued me as anything other than a tool. The door closed. Through the window, I watched them drive away. Then I collapsed onto the couch and cried until I couldn't breathe. Jennifer sat beside me, not touching, just present. When I finally calmed down, she handed me a bottle of water. That was incredibly brave, she said. That was terrifying. Both things can be true. She pulled out her phone. I'm filing the restraining order tomorrow. No contact in person or electronic. If they violate it, they'll face legal consequences. Will it stop them? People like your family don't stop because they're told to. They stop when the cost of continuing is too high. We're going to make the cost very, very high. The twins were born on a rainy October morning at 37 weeks. Labor started at 3 a.m. with contractions that felt like my body was being split in two. Margaret drove me to the hospital while I breathed through the pain and tried not to panic. Dr. Morrison was waiting. You're doing great, Emma. Both babies are in good position. Let's bring them into the world. 12 hours later, I held them for the first time. My son, who I named Oliver, came first. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and my eyes. He came out screaming, furious at the world, and I loved him instantly. My daughter, Sophia, followed 8 minutes later. 5 pounds, 11 ounces, quieter than her brother, but just as perfect. She had my nose and a dimple in her left cheek. They were mine, actually, legally, irrevocably mine. I sobbed as the nurse placed them on my chest, their tiny bodies warm against my skin. Hi, babies, I whispered. I'm your mama. I've got you. I'll always have you. The birth certificates listed only my name. No father, just Emma Richardson and her twins born in Portland, Oregon at Sacred Heart Hospital. No Claire, no Marcus, no family who'd tried to steal them. Just us. The first 3 months were brutal, in ways I hadn't anticipated. Twins meant double the feedings, double the diapers, double the sleepless nights. I was drowning in exhaustion and spit up and the constant fear that I was doing everything wrong. But I was also deliriously happy. Every smile, every coo, every tiny milestone felt like a victory. Oliver rolled over at 10 weeks. Sophia started sleeping through the night at 12. They were healthy, thriving, and mine. Margaret helped when she could, bringing groceries and occasionally babysitting so I could shower or sleep. Jennifer checked in weekly, making sure my family was honoring the restraining order. They were. Mostly, Claire's Instagram had gone quiet after the birth. No more posts about me, no more desperate pleas for information, but I knew she was still watching, still waiting. I'd moved to a different house shortly after the twins were born, somewhere even more remote. Margaret had helped me find it through a friend of a friend. A small ranch-style home on 3 acres, far enough from town that unexpected visitors would be obvious. I worked remotely now, doing contract legal work for firms that didn't care where I lived. The money was decent, enough to cover expenses and start building a college fund for the twins. Life was quiet, simple. Everything I'd never had before. And then, on a cold February morning when the twins were 4 months old, everything changed. I was feeding Sophia when my phone rang. An unknown number, which I normally wouldn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emma Richardson? A man's voice, professional and crisp. Who's asking? My name is David Chen. I'm an attorney representing Marcus Ashford. I'm calling to inform you that my client is filing for a paternity test and subsequent custody of the twins born to you on October 15th of last year. My blood turned to ice. On what grounds? Mr. Ashford believes he is the biological father of the children and has the right to establish paternity and seek custody. That's insane. I used an anonymous sperm donor. I have documentation. Mr. Ashford contends that you stole his genetic material and used it without his consent. He's prepared to file a police report for theft in addition to the civil custody case. The audacity. The absolute fucking audacity. Tell your client to go to hell and tell him my attorney will be in touch. I hung up and immediately called Jennifer. She answered on the second ring. Emma, what's wrong? I explained the call. By the end, Jennifer was swearing creatively in what sounded like Spanish. They're desperate, she said. The restraining order prevented direct contact, so they're trying legal avenues, but this is weak, really weak. Unless Marcus can prove he's the biological father, which he can't because he's not, he has no case. Can they force a paternity test? They can try, but a judge would need to see probable cause. Right now, all they have is Marcus's word against your medical records. That's not enough. So what do I do? Nothing. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let them waste their money filing frivolous motions. Meanwhile, I'm going to file a motion to dismiss and a countersuit for harassment. Will it work? Emma, you've done everything right. You have documentation, medical records, witness testimony. Your babies are legally yours. This is just them thrashing around, trying to find a foothold. Don't give them one. But I couldn't shake the fear. What if they found a sympathetic judge? What if Marcus lied convincingly enough? What if? I looked down at Sophia, asleep in my arms, her tiny face peaceful. Oliver was napping in his swing, making the little snuffling sounds that meant he'd wake up hungry soon. They were mine. I'd fought too hard, sacrificed too much, died, and been reborn to protect them. I wouldn't let anyone take them. Not again. The custody hearing was set for April. Jennifer filed every motion possible to delay, to dismiss, to throw out the case entirely. But Marcus had money and lawyers and the kind of persistence that comes from entitlement. We'll win, Jennifer assured me, but we have to go through the process. Show up, present your evidence, and let the judge see how baseless this is. I hired a nanny, a trusted woman Margaret recommended, to watch the twins during the hearing. I couldn't bring them to court. Couldn't risk them being anywhere near my family. The courthouse was in my home state, which meant flying back to the place I'd escaped. Walking into the building felt like walking into a trap. But Jennifer was beside me, and I had truth on my side. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table with David Chen and another lawyer I didn't recognize. Claire was in the gallery looking pale and drawn. Mom and Dad sat beside her. They all stared at me with expressions ranging from fury to desperation. I kept my eyes forward. Judge Patricia Walsh called the court to order. She was in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book. "Mr. Chen," she said, "your client is seeking to establish paternity and gain custody of 2 infants currently in the care of Ms. Richardson. Please present your case." David Chen stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. My client Marcus Ashford contends that the defendant obtained his genetic material through deception and used it to conceive children without his knowledge or consent. He's seeking a paternity test to confirm biological parentage and requesting shared custody if the test is positive. And what evidence do you have of this alleged deception?" Mr. Ashford and the defendant had discussions about surrogacy prior to her disappearance. She was aware of his desire for biological children. Shortly after those discussions broke down, the defendant relocated and subsequently became pregnant. The timing is suspicious. Suspicious isn't evidence, Mr. Chen. We believe a paternity test will provide the evidence needed, Your Honor. Judge Walsh turned to Jennifer. "Ms. Santos, your response?" Jennifer stood on. "Your Honor, Mr. Ashford's claims are baseless and, frankly, insulting. My client conceived via anonymous sperm donor at a licensed facility, a fact documented in her medical records. She has never had a sexual or romantic relationship with Mr. Ashford. His assertion that she somehow stole his genetic material is absurd and unsupported by any evidence whatsoever. Do you have documentation of this sperm donor arrangement?" "Yes, Your Honor. We've submitted medical records from Pacific Fertility Clinic showing Ms. Richardson underwent IUI with donor sperm on February 20th. The donor's profile is on file, though his identity is protected under Oregon law. We also have financial records showing Ms. Richardson paid for the procedure herself." Judge Walsh reviewed the documents. The silence stretched. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Chen, I'm looking at very clear documentation that Ms. Richardson used an anonymous donor. Unless your client has evidence that he was that donor, which seems unlikely given the clinic's protocols, I'm inclined to dismiss this petition." "Your Honor, we believe Ms. Richardson falsified those records. We're requesting the court compel the clinic to turn over the actual donor information so we can verify." "You're asking me to violate donor confidentiality laws based on your client's hunch? That's not going to happen." "Then we request a paternity test. Surely that's reasonable. If Mr. Ashford isn't the father, the test will show it and this matter is resolved." I felt Jennifer tense beside me. We'd discussed this possibility. A paternity test would definitively prove Marcus wasn't the father, but it would also require the twins to be subjected to the process, to be part of this circus. Judge Walsh seemed to be thinking the same thing. "Ms. Santos, does your client consent to a paternity test?" Jennifer stood again. "Absolutely not, Your Honor. Subjecting 2 4-month-old infants to an invasive medical procedure to satisfy the unfounded suspicions of a man who has no legal relationship to them is unreasonable and potentially traumatic. Mr. Ashford has provided no evidence, none, that he has any claim to these children. Making my client prove a negative is a gross abuse of the legal system." "Your Honor," Chen interjected, "if Ms. Richardson has nothing to hide—" "If your client has evidence, present it," Judge Walsh cut him off. "Otherwise, you're wasting this. Court's time." I watched Marcus lean over and whisper urgently to his lawyer. Chen nodded and stood again. "Your Honor, we'd like to call a witness. Claire Ashford, the defendant's sister." Oh, God, of course. Claire walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat with her hands folded primly in her lap. She looked fragile, bereaved, sympathetic. "Mrs. Ashford," Chen began, can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" "Emma is my older sister," Claire said softly. "We used to be close before all of this." "Can you tell the court what happened?" "My husband and I have been trying to have children for years." When we found out I couldn't carry a pregnancy, we asked Emma to be our surrogate. She agreed at first, seemed excited even. We started making plans, discussing compensation. But then she changed her mind without explanation and cut off all contact with our family. Did she give a reason? No, she just disappeared. We were devastated. And then we found out she was pregnant, and we realized her voice broke perfectly. We realized she decided to keep the babies for herself, babies that were supposed to be ours. Objection, Jennifer called out. There is no evidence that these babies were supposed to be anyone's. Mrs. Ashford is testifying to an agreement that never existed. Mrs. Ashford, Judge Walsh said, do you have any documentation of this surrogacy agreement? Claire hesitated. We were family. We didn't think we needed formal paperwork. It was supposed to be a gift, sister to sister. So, no written agreement? No, but did Ms. Richardson ever sign anything? Agree to anything in writing or in front of witnesses? Not in writing, but we had conversations. Our parents were there. They'll testify. Hearsay, Jennifer said, and irrelevant. Even if those conversations happened, my client had every right to change her mind about a hypothetical surrogacy arrangement before any medical procedures occurred. What she didn't have was any obligation to provide her sister with children. Judge Walsh nodded. Ms. Ashford, I appreciate your testimony, but nothing you've said establishes any legal claim to Ms. Richardson's children. Is there anything else, Mr. Chen? He looked desperate now. Your Honor, the timing. The fact that the defendant became pregnant shortly after these discussions. The fact that she fled the state and hid the pregnancy from her family. It suggests that Ms. Richardson chose to have children on her own and wisely kept that decision private from a family that seems to feel entitled to those children. That's not illegal, Mr. Chen. It's called bodily autonomy. Your Honor, I've heard enough. Unless you have actual evidence, DNA, a signed contract, something beyond your client's word and his wife's tearful testimony, this petition is dismissed. Your Honor, please. Dismissed, Mr. Chen. And I'm awarding attorney's fees to Ms. Richardson. Your client brought a frivolous suit that wasted this court's time and attempted to harass a new mother. He can pay for the privilege. The gavel came down. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. Jennifer's hand on my arm was the only thing keeping me grounded. It's over, she whispered. You won. Behind me, I heard Claire start to cry. Real tears this time, the tears of someone who'd finally definitively lost. I didn't look back, didn't gloat. I just stood up and walked out of the courtroom, away from the family that had tried to destroy me, toward the life I'd built from ashes. The twins were 18 months old when Claire showed up at my door. I'd moved again to a small town in Washington state. I worked fully remote now, doing consulting work that paid well enough for us to be comfortable. The twins were in a part-time daycare program where they were learning to socialize, to play, to be normal toddlers. Oliver was obsessed with trucks. Sophia loved books. They fought over toys and hugged each other when they were sad and called me Mama in their sweet, lisping voices. My life was everything I'd never dared to dream. And then Claire was on my doorstep, looking like she'd aged 10 years. I know I'm not supposed to be here, she said before I could slam the door. I know about the restraining order. I'm violating it just by being here. But please, just give me 5 minutes. I should have called the police, should have documented the violation and let Jennifer handle it. But something in Claire's face stopped me. She looked broken. 5 minutes, I said. On the porch. You don't come inside. You don't try to see the twins. Okay. She sank onto the porch step like her legs wouldn't hold her. Okay. I stayed standing, arms crossed, waiting. Marcus left me, she said finally. 3 months ago, he said he couldn't forgive me for losing the babies, for letting you get away with them. He's filing for divorce. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no satisfaction. Just nothing. I'm sorry, I said, because it seemed like the thing to say. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here to tell you the truth about all of it. Claire, please, you deserve to know. I sighed but nodded. It was Mom's idea, Claire said. The whole thing. Not the surrogacy. That really was me and Marcus. We really couldn't have kids. But when you said no, Mom was furious. She said you'd always been selfish, always thought you were better than us. She said we needed to teach you a lesson. A lesson? About family. About loyalty. She and Dad planned the whole campaign. The whispers at their clubs, the emails to your firm. Dad has a friend on the board. He's the one who pushed for your bad review. Mom spread the rumors about your mental health. They wanted to break you down until you agreed. And the accident? Claire's face went white. That wasn't supposed to happen, I swear. We hired someone to follow you, to scare you a little. He was supposed to just, I don't know, make you nervous. He went too far, Dad paid him off, and he disappeared. You're telling me my family orchestrated a hit and run that nearly killed me, then held me prisoner and forcibly impregnated me, all because I wouldn't give you a baby? When you say it like that, how else should I say it, Claire? She was crying now. I know it was insane. I know we went too far, but I wanted a baby so badly, and Mom kept saying, you owed us, and Marcus kept saying his family name needed an heir, and I stopped thinking about you as my sister. You became this obstacle, this problem to solve. And now? Now I have nothing. Marcus is gone. Mom and Dad won't even talk to me. They blame me for losing the case, for not fighting harder. I lost my sister, my husband, my family, and the babies I thought would make everything okay. I have nothing. I wanted to feel vindicated, wanted to revel in her misery the way she'd reveled in mine. But looking at her, hollowed out and destroyed, I just felt tired. You did this to yourself, I said quietly. All of it. You chose to value what you wanted over my humanity. You chose to let Mom and Dad turn you into someone who could justify the unjustifiable. And you chose to keep fighting even after you lost, even after it was clear those babies were never yours. I know. Good. Now leave. Don't come back. Don't contact me. Don't try to see the twins. They're not your redemption. They're not your second chance. They're my children, and you have no place in their lives. Emma, go, Claire. And don't violate the restraining order again. I won't be generous next time. She stood slowly, wiping her eyes. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I watched her walk to her car, drive away, and disappear down the road. Then I went inside, locked the door, and called Jennifer to report the violation. The twins turned 3 in October. We had a party in the backyard, nothing fancy, just cake and balloons and a few neighborhood kids. Oliver destroyed his slice of chocolate cake with gleeful abandon. Sophia carefully ate around the frosting, saving it for last. Margaret came bearing gifts and hugs. Jennifer sent a card with a generous check for the college fund. No one else knew where we were. No one from my old life could find us. We were safe. We were happy. We were free. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and looked at the stars. I thought about my first life, about the woman I'd been, broken, used, dying alone. I thought about the choice that had been made, whatever cosmic force had given me a second chance. I'd used it well. My children would never know the grandparents who'd tried to steal them. They'd never know the aunt who'd schemed to claim them. They'd grow up knowing only love, safety, and the truth that they were wanted. Not for what they could provide, but for who they were. Oliver wanted to be a firefighter. Sophia wanted to be a veterinarian. They had dreams and hopes and futures that belonged to them alone, and I had the privilege of watching them grow. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family. Mom, still bitter, still blaming me. I blocked the number without responding. Then I went inside, checked on my sleeping children, and went to bed. Tomorrow, Oliver had preschool. Sophia had a play date. I had a client call at noon and needed to prep a brief by Friday. Normal life, boring life, beautiful life, the life I died to protect, the life I'd do anything to keep, and this time, no one could take it from me.